Hey, quit making fun of my camera abilities, Tyrell. All right, there's the dot. So that gives you a pretty good idea. I hit all those. I'm happy with myself. So that should show you what it kind of looks like.
Here is my review on the Holosun EPS. This is not the carry version, so it does not have the backup sights milled into it, and I believe the carry version is slightly smaller. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure that's how it works. This one's the regular EPS. It's designed for a full-size gun, and as you can see on here, I think it looks pretty good. It is I'll have to grab my other Holosun wherever it's at. I think it's somewhere in safe. The regular Holosun, if you remember or you've seen one, it's basically, it doesn't have this squared off look. It's rounded, and because of that, this window is a little bit smaller than a standard Holosun. Again, I'll get one out here in a second so you can kind of see that. Some people like the squared look, some people like the round look. I mean, I really don't care, honestly, as long as it functions. I'm cool with it. But I've been using this for a little while now as my carry gun, and I absolutely love this thing. Now, the reason I wanted to get one is, if you know me, I like stuff that's overbuilt. I want something to be stronger, tougher than it really needs to be, practically speaking, but I just like that what-if factor. If this happens, will my optic be okay? If it's raining or my gun gets submerged or thrown in dirt or mud or, whatever, insert here. And also, if you're like a cop or if you carry a gun openly for whatever reason, dust and debris and, pocket lint, whatever you want to call it, shirt lint, especially if you're concealed carrying, will get down inside the emitter on most open emitter optics. On the, I don't remember if it was the 407, 507, anyways, the one with the ACSS reticle in it, the little chevron with the giant ring. I ended up selling that one because I really didn't need it anymore, and I preferred just a dot. Since I don't need the training wheels that is a giant circle anymore, I wanted to upgrade. And I also wanted to get something that was enclosed, but I didn't like the, is it the 509, I want to say, the giant mailbox looking thing, because it's just massive, and I don't really like the Picatinny rail style clamp on method that it has, because it just raises it so high, and it's just big, it adds more weight. I wasn't a huge fan of that, because I've shot it on a few different guns. Now, granted, one of them was a Walther, and so that was already had a high, bore axis, and I wasn't a big fan of that. I like Glock, where I'm spoiled, where it has a low bore axis, and I enjoy that. So I didn't really want to just have such a large height over bore issue, I guess, for lack of better words. So I was waiting for a company to make an enclosed emitter optic that was smaller, and I'm glad I waited. My patience was rewarded, and here is the EPS. Now, if you look at it size-wise, it's almost identical to a 507 or 407. Let me go grab that real quick so I can show you. I hopefully have some improved light here. If this lighting now is too bright or obnoxious, let me know down in the comments, and I won't do it again, but this will actually help me see. So you have, if I don't bump the camera, you have the two optics right here, and obviously this would be setting lower if it was in the groove or the slot for it. But you can see size-wise, they're nearly identical to each other. Let me see if I can put this one behind that one. So if anything, it's actually, sorry, this is hard to do behind the camera. If anything, I think the EPS is actually a smidgen smaller. Could be wrong, but body-wise, at least the height of the optic, it is actually a little bit lower. Yeah, there we go. You can see that kind of right there. It is a little bit lower, and the window or the body of it is, I would say, honestly about the same. The hood. So whatever kind of magic they were able to do worked well. But as you can see right here, looks like the window is just a smidgen smaller. Now, it's the top of the window that you really don't use with this thing anyway, so it's perceived to be smaller, but usability-wise, I haven't noticed any real problems with it. The window's plenty big in my mind because, again, you're shooting with both eyes open. I'll leave that there just for, eye candy. But so size-wise, I think the window is adequate. You could also put the carry version on here if you want something even smaller. I personally wouldn't do that. I think it'd be a little bit too small. I like the little bit bigger window. But I've always wondered why they couldn't do an enclosed emitter, basically just put a lens more or less over here, over this right here. And I've seen a couple companies that actually do something similar to that. I want to say SIG has done something like that, where it's kind of like you you screw down the optic and then like you screw on basically a giant, I don't know, shell that goes over the top of the thing that kind of encloses it. But I mean, it's like super expensive, so that's not something I would necessarily want to do. Versus this is something you can buy right out of the gate for around $300. Same price as basically all these other ones. That does the same thing. Now, the reason I like an enclosed emitter, and I've told you this before, is instead of something like this where I had to about once a week go in there with a Q-tip and clean out the lens as well as the emitter. That's, you know, down here, there's a little lens right here that blocks the emitter, and whenever that gets all fuzzy, it makes your reticle look gross and nasty. So I'd have to do that once a week. And if you get dust or anything in this, especially if you have like a duty holster that doesn't have a hood on it, or even if it does, it's still possible for stuff to get down in there. If that emitter gets messed up and you don't have anything small that you can stick down in there, your reticle may be unusable. And that to me is unacceptable. You always have iron sights, but again, your optic, the glass on the inside there, if you just threw some mud in there, you're not getting that clear anytime soon, even enough to use your iron sights. Now, you could just kind of use like, you know, gross sight pictures of your back plate, or, you know, the top of the optic itself is technically a reference aiming point if you needed to. But that's less than ideal. Versus something like this, if it gets mud on it, you literally just wipe off the back and you wipe off the front, you're good to go, just like you would with any other like rifle optic. So not having something that where all the stuff can get down into, you literally just wipe this flush screen and it's done. I really like that because the emitter and everything is on the inside. Now, because of that, they obviously had to change up things. So one of the downsides is this doesn't use your standard like Glock base plates that comes with a Glock. Now, granted, no one really likes those plates anyway, so that's not a big deal. But since those are free and come with the MOSs, you know, obviously you're gonna have to spend more money on a aftermarket plate like I did in order to mount this. Now, that's not that big of a deal. If you have an RMR cut plate, this does come with an RMR adapter plate, and I believe it's just aluminum. It doesn't feel like steel. It's not heavy enough. I think it's just anodized aluminum. So that will work if you have a RMR cut slide like this one back here. Let me grab this so you can see it. So this is a Glock that I have. It's a Gen 3 that I have a Brownells RMR cut slide on. So if you have something like this, obviously you could mount this directly to it, and then you could mount that on here. Now, the only problem with that is if you have an RMR cut slide, you're going to lose that really, really low, low mounting for your red dot. So it's going to be a higher, so essentially be an MOS. So at that point, like, it's kind of one of the reasons why I like the MOS better, and I don't really care about getting an RMR cut slide. Yes, I like the optic being lower, but with how small this is with an adapter plate, it's pretty much the same height as this. Now, with standard Glock sights, in case for those who want to know, that like cowitness, the standard height Glock sights will not cowitness with this with a C&H precision plate. It is not low enough, and I don't know of another plate out there that gets any lower, so you're going to have to buy some sort of aftermarket sights. But these, in case you want to know, are TruGlo sights, and they just barely, I don't know if you can see that on there, they just barely will co-witness like the top quarter, maybe top eighth of those iron sights will co-witness. And for an emergency use, that's plenty. I don't need the entire iron sight in order to aim. I'm not the biggest fan of those TruGlo sights. I'm probably going to put some black paint over the tritium, just because with night vision, having tritium in there just really messes with your vision. All that said, I like it because it's a lower optic, and it allows you for just natural. If you're looking for iron sights and you're used to shooting with iron sights, this optic will not get in the way and have a steep learning curve like one of these used to, or something that was mounted higher up on an adapter plate high up. One of the biggest drawbacks for red dot sights is for people who are so used to shooting iron sights and then shooting with something that has a really tall height over bore, and so you're basically having to change your entire presentation of the gun to get used to the red dot, which takes a while. This pretty much eliminates that, just similar to how an RMR cut slide would with like an RMR or something on top. Also, for those who are wondering, yes, these Glock sights are backwards because I absolutely hate that U-shape, and I just wanted blacked out sights that kind of worked, and I have the dot up front because, I guess I could paint it if I wanted to. But that just gave me kind of a poor man's rear blacked out sight because I didn't want to spend money. Also, for those of you wondering, this Goon Beam light is on here. You can see that little thing over there. I've been testing this out a little bit. It actually works really, really well. It's essentially a poor man's Surefire Vampire, the not the Vampire, but it's the Surefire X300 Turbo. And between the two, I like the Turbo better, but this one's only about 120 bucks, and it's more or less a Chinese TLR1 with all the internals replaced with better internals. So look for a review coming on this. Again, that's by Gumim. That was a viewer suggested video, and I also have their light, which is what's holding up that Glock right now. Let me show you kind of the specs, because this is why you're here. There's all the specs. The 50,000 hours, I believe, is fairly accurate. I haven't had to change batteries on this yet. I've had this for probably 3 months now at this point. My ACSS, I would have had to change the batteries by now if I was using the entire reticle. That's on setting 6. You're going to want it brighter than that. So I'd say probably for most people, you're going to get probably 30,000 to 40,000 maybe hours, which is more than enough. It has the on-off on feature, so you're not going to have to change batteries. And then it has a side-loading tray if you need it anyways. 2 MOA Dot, it's fine. It uses the CR1620 battery, so they're a little bit smaller. That's part of the battery life issue, which, again, I don't care. Change out your batteries once a year and you'll be fine. It says it has zero distortion, all that kind of stuff. I haven't noticed any. And then it talks about all the stuff that no one really cares about. It's waterproof, parallax-free, blah, blah, blah. And there's your 507C. That's an RMR cut. Plate is included. It also comes with a cleaning cloth, instruction manuals that I never opened because I'm a dude. We don't read those. And it comes with your little standard tool for changing the batteries and changing the windage and everything. I probably have roughly, I don't know, at this point I have not quite 1,000 rounds. I'd say somewhere between 500 and 750 rounds through this gun specifically with that optic on there, because I wanted to get used to it and get a good feel for it before I made a video, and I absolutely love this thing. It's my favorite optic to date. Now, I still hold true that I like this reticle, and you won't be able to see this because it's too bright. This is basically an EOTech style reticle on this optic. I still like this reticle better, but overall this optic I trust more. And if you're going to do something, get an optic for like duty or even concealed carry, because again it's enclosed, get this. The only downside is you're going to have to buy an adapter plate, and I've been using the C&H Precision, and as long as you watch my video on that and know not to over torque screws and buy the replacement screws and replace them every 2 or 3 times that you swap optics, if you do that, then their plates are good to go. So one more thing I'll mention before I forget about it. There was a pretty big advantage to this optic that I didn't really perceive, and it kind of has to do with just removing weight from my slide. If you know, the last optic I had on this gun was the CUDA optic that had the auto adjusting that worked phenomenally. And if you could have my perfect optic, it'd be basically this optic with this reticle with the auto adjusting of the CUDA brand optic that I had on there a while back. That would be my perfect optic. But since that technology doesn't exist, this is what I'm stuck with. But one of the benefits that I didn't really expect was how much lighter recoiling this Glock 19 is. Now on there before, I had the original Glock plate, which is steel, and then I had the CUDA optic on there, which is larger than most open emitter optics, and because it has so much technology inside of it, so it's a little bit heavier. And then I had the TruGlo suppressor height sights on there, which added weight as well. So all that combined added, I don't know how many ounces of weight extra, but it was enough to notice. And the recoil impulse with all that stuff on there was not substantially more, but it was enough to notice whenever I switched to all this stuff how much less recoil I have, or perceived recoil I have on there, because the slide mass is just that much less. Because again, the Glock plate weighs a bunch. This one's aluminum. This optic weighs less than the CUDA. These sights are steel and weigh less than the TruGlo. So all of that weight, which you can achieve, through doing something like this, milling slide. This gun has fairly low recoil as well because there's less mass. But that's another benefit as well to going to something like this with the lower, not having, suppressor height sights, is you have less recoil. My follow-up shots, if I'm just doing something like a bill drill, or something where you're firing quickly in rapid succession, I can control this and find my dot faster, a lot easier than I could with the heavier options that are out there. So that's just kind of something that I found that I wasn't really expecting, but I was pleasantly surprised whenever it happened. So again, this was, I don't know, maybe a shorter video. Maybe it's a longer video. I'll have to see whenever I edit it. But hopefully you appreciate this kind of content. Again, there wasn't a whole lot for me to say on this other than my experience. I mean, it's a Holosun. I mean, at this point, they've made like 18 different designs that everyone absolutely loves. So there's not a whole lot to go wrong with getting a Holosun. I have yet to see a bad one, or one that had issues, unless it was, user induced. All of mine have been solid. I've just sold the ones I didn't need anymore or whenever I was upgrading. Holosun at this point is a reputable brand, so there's not a whole lot to really say about durability and all that kind of stuff. They're kind of proven at this point. If y'all have any questions about it, feel free to comment down below. Like, subscribe, comment, all that stuff helps the channel quite a bit. If you want to share it, go for it. I do post stuff on Rumble whenever it decides to upload correctly, so if you want to watch it over there, you can. I think there's all of like 3 of you that do that, so appreciate y'all. Again, if you have any ideas for new content, again, because stuff like this Goom Beam on this light right here, and also I didn't show you this one right here, which actually this is a phenomenal rifle light. It's a copy of the Streamlight HLX rail mount, but this has way better candela, so I'll be reviewing that at some point too. So I appreciate whenever y'all comment on stuff, because I find things like that I didn't know exist, and they're interesting to me to review things that are very, very budget friendly, for like mod light performance more or less, but for Streamlight prices. So hopefully you appreciate this, and I hope you all have a good one.